So a bit ago, I got a tent. I ordered a tent at the end of the probably towards the end of December, and it came. Well, yeah, sometime in December. It got here in January, and I had set it up to kind of take a quick look at it, and it looked nice and everything. I had been deliberating over like getting a hot tent for like a month plus before picking it up. So when I finally bought it, um, I could have just gotten the tent itself. It would have been like cheaper, way cheaper. But I went and got all the bells and whistles. So I basically paid like $430 for it. So the Pomali Manta has basically the outer tent itself, and most Pomali hot tents have this cap cone on top that basically lets you open it up to ventilate it and whatnot. So it gives you the flexibility to open it up more if you need it or to close it off. And the Manta has a snow skirt, and not every one of Pomali's tents has that. So I had been going between this and the Hussar Plus. This is supposed to be a 2 to 4 man tent. So the reason why 2 to 4 is basically because if you're not using any inner tents, you can like stuff like 2 to 4 people in there without the stove. With the stove, you're probably, if you're like winter camping, you're probably only going to go 2 people because you need room for the equipment and your firewood and stuff like that. I don't yet have a stove, but it's been a thought to like do like set up a little outdoor office in the middle of winter with a stove just for fun to see how it would work. But which it's fully capable of. But anyway, so I also got this because it's like, well, I can probably squeeze it so that I can fit like the bed setup that I currently have in there, and I pretty well can. Uh, I actually got different shots of it, but like you've got like a full twin mattress will fit in like half of this tent pretty easily, and a twin what actually it's a single sized futon will fits in there pretty nicely, which is basically the basis of my measurements there. So a twin should fit in there okay if you've got a twin mattress that you can squeeze in. That half inner tent will work pretty well. The half mesh that covers half the floor footprint of the tent is will put 2 people in there, but you are it's basically like a dome tent, a 2-man dome tent is what it kind of is going to feel like somewhat. But what's nice is it does have a hook up top for you to hang your light from, and it's got like pockets in different places to hold stuff. It's got pockets up at the top of the mesh, close to where you've got to hook it up to the top, and then like down at the bottom. So the half mesh basically has a little buckle that it buckles into at the peak of the teepee. My floor was black instead of brown, a black nylon it looked like. They probably use an actual Oxford fabric in some of the older ones. I don't know, but that may be. What's nice is the half mesh does have the zippers so that you can open the back vents if you need to. With the full mesh, they don't have those those back openings where you can zip it closed and open to access the flaps on the back vents. Because what I found is I had this tent set up over the last for like the last 2 weeks, and it has been through rain, wind, and sun. So it's been through probably most of the stuff you're gonna see in an actual field situation, except for the snow, which I'm pretty sure it'll last in snow because it's designed as a hot tent. So one of the main reason why it took so long for me to like actually get it tested is I wanted a good rainy day, because what worried me is a stove jack. I had been going through a couple other videos about other hot tents when it comes to the stove jack, and it's like the stove jack is the most likely portion to leak through and things like that. So I wanted to make sure that the stove jack wouldn't leak. And so I had a good like couple of days of good heavy rain, and this thing is watertight basically. It will shed off the water pretty well. In fact, it's like water repellent just about. Like it just pools up like it's doesn't want to be there. One thing I did notice though is on days, so I set it up basically a couple days after we'd had some snow clear out, and I figured it was the best point to do it. And I noticed that there was condensation on the side of the tent that was facing away from the sun. So it's not too bad, and in spite of that, it still like keeps the water out pretty well. Now, the one issue going back to the back vents there, the back flaps, is if you are not able to close those become a place of entry for water to come into if you don't have those closed up. So you run into the issue where you get water splashing in. And I saw this because I had the back vents open when it first rained on top of it. And I could see where like water had splashed in like those two spots. And it's like, okay, yep, that's what it is. There we go. Problem solved. And I was kind of worried about it getting muggy inside of it. And so it's actually not too bad for like the couple times that I slept in over the last 2 weeks. So what another interesting note that I noticed with the half mesh is, I think other people have talked about it, is the inner half you can set up as like a standalone bug net if you really want to. It's got a pocket for it, so you can put a whole pole or a stick in it and prop it up that way if you want to. The full inner mesh is kind of the same way. It's got a really nice open door, like 2 open doors to line up with the 2 doors on the tent itself. So you set it up that way. Oh, and you can, in the example images, they have it set up without it anyway. So what's really nice is in the middle of the floor, it's all the same Oxford fabric across the bottom of the floor. And in the middle, they've got like this reinforced like plastic tarping for where the pole should go. And it actually holds pretty strong pretty well. So when the wind was blowing, I had the full inner mesh set up in it. I didn't have it as tight as I could have. And so it resulted in the floor like bubbling. So I didn't get it as tight as I should have, honestly. But that little pad where the pole sits in the middle of the floor actually held up pretty well in spite of it. There was like a good like solid like indent from it, from the wind blowing on it and things like that. There were a couple times over the like 2 days that it was like blowing really well on it that I was kind of worried it was going to fall over and blow the tent away, but it didn't. It held really, really strong. And I know other people have talked about the stakes, and I was kind of worried about them at first, and I'm like, eh. So when I first set it up, I had trouble pulling the stakes out because the little cord that they have on the stakes is just not sufficient for the trying to pull the stakes out. They just break really easily. And so when I was trying to pull the stakes out after pounding the stakes into the ground in January, I basically kept ripping the cords, and so like 4 of the stakes I had basically kicked out and broken and bent up. So this is like a $300 to $400 tent, and they did like the cord that they have is sufficient for the zippers, but for stakes when you're trying to pull them out of the ground, it's just not enough. So I ended up replacing it with paracord otherwise, and I did end up going and buying similar stakes otherwise. And when I found these stakes, there were directions on it, and I was not aware of this, that you like sink those stakes into the ground at a 45-degree angle. That had never occurred to me or anything, and so when I did that, the tent held much better. One thing to note, though, is the tent has tie-outs on each of the 6 corners, and those are very important to have put up, because I was trying to set it up with some gusts of wind coming in every so often. And what happens is when you pitch a tent and you just have the 6 corners staked down, you get a like slight gust of wind and the stake will come up and it'll pop out of the ground. So those 6 extra stakes with the tie-outs and guy lines basically help keep that tent stable more so. And it helps it stay erect so that you're not like falling over all the time and having it fall over on you. So the tie-outs are very important for the stability of the tent, along with those corners. And with that, the stakes are basically pretty sufficient. It's just either A, Pomali has to replace the microcord that they're using with it with a proper like 550 paracord or something else, or you're basically doing it yourself more than likely. So but yeah, after that I was able to pull it out. So with the wind, there was as I was pulling the stakes out after the wind, I was inspecting all the stakes, and most of them actually stayed pretty straight. I had to pull them out. There was one on like a corner on the tent itself that didn't fare too well, but you can still drive it into the ground, and I'll basically end up using it on the back vent flaps pretty much. I won't use it for like a structural support one, but so it holds up pretty well in the wind. You've just got to stake it down properly and get that floor tight if you're using the full one. Otherwise, you're basically just making sure that you've got the tent nice and tight, because it will take wind pretty well and it'll do okay. So yeah, so basically the inside of it is pretty roomy. It's a pretty good tent from what I've been able to tell. And if you are someone looking for a tent that's nice and roomy and has its space, then this is a really good option for you. There are people that put cots in it and whatnot, and they're able to fare pretty well with it. Like I said, I don't have the stove just yet, but I am looking at getting one. So when I do that, that'll be a little bit down the road. But it's been a pretty interesting tent, and I think I'm going to love it. For summer camping, I think it'll do pretty well still in spite of it. It seems like a good all-around tent, and if you're looking for something that like you'll buy and like use throughout the year, I think this one passes the test, at least for me. I don't know about other people, but this passes the sniff test according to me, and I would personally recommend it. It's just there are a couple things Pomali might want to work out so that you can get better ventilation in the thing and control it when the weather turns sour on you. So yeah, if Pomali just does that, then they should be pretty well. And if they can improve some of the other stuff. Um, yeah, just remember the stakes might come up if this ground is too soft too, and that kind of a thing. But it really isn't that bad. It'll actually stay pretty solid. And yeah, if you found like this informative, I know it's a bit weird from like what I normally do, but this is just one of those things. It's also like an idea where it's like I mentioned, it's like I've been thinking if I get a stove, then I can like set up a desk out in it and see how that goes. Because I shouldn't really need a mesh during the winter or during the colder months. So I can sleep straight and not use that crappy sleeping pad that I got that's supposed to be an emergency one. And I can use something better and have a warm place to work in and mess around for a week in it and see how that goes. And maybe, yeah, challenge thing. If that, yeah. Links and stuff are down in the descriptions and whatnot, and I will see you guys later.